Hi, everybody. Pastor Kirk here. And we have a deal. We have a deal with the Synod for our church property. Monday, our Fair Oaks negotiating team met with the Synod team, and within 2 hours, we were shaking hands on an agreement. The long Exodus journey from the Peace USA to freedom, which had begun in earnest nearly 4 years ago, is nearly concluded. This is very good news. On Wednesday, a special meeting of our session convened to hear the team's report, and they unanimously approved the framework and figure of the settlement agreement, which was outlined in a memorandum of understanding signed by both parties. And now we're simply awaiting write-up of the actual agreement itself by the attorneys to be reviewed, approved, and formally signed, probably around Thanksgiving, appropriately. Here's the deal. Here are the terms. We will pay the Peace USA $1.1 million plus half their attorney fees. We're splitting them with Roseville Press. Those fees are our share of the fees are estimated between $100,000 and $150,000. And we'll pay this by March 15, 2011. And then the property is ours. The lawsuit is ended. The Peace USA's claim to our property and title are dropped, and the church will be finally and fully ours. Now let me give you some background. The Synod is the Peace USA authority above the Sacramento Presbytery. Sacramento Presbytery asked them to take over the funding and the prosecution of the lawsuit. 2 years ago, our church won the first round in Superior Court, and we were awarded the church property. But then a very adverse ruling was handed down by the state Supreme Court against an Episcopal church in a very similar dispute. And the Third District Court of Appeals ruled that our Presbyterian church was similarly hierarchical, that the denomination's claim that the property was theirs in trust, that was an enforceable claim, and therefore that the judgment in our favor was negated and the case should be sent back for retrial. The legal authorities that we consulted advised us we would almost certainly lose the next round, and the property would be awarded to the PCUSA. Well, we immediately overtured the Synod and requested a sit-down with them to negotiate a settlement. And at our first meeting back in April, the Synod demanded $4 million, which I suppose you could argue is a steal since the property had just been appraised in a down market, fortunately, at $10.5 million. Back and forth we went for 2 hours. That was back in April. And when we recessed, we were still $1 million apart. Meanwhile, our sister church over in Roseville Press, negotiated a settlement figure with the Synod for $810,000, plus half the attorney fees. Synod also offered a 20-year payout at no interest, but they were insisting on holding title. In other words, we would be leasing the property from the PCUSA for the term of the debt, maybe 20 years. And our team felt that was non-negotiable. If we surrendered title, we might never get it back. Our next capital campaign to build a CE and administration wing would be stillborn. It could never get off the ground. And our congregation would consider a PCUSA tenancy humiliating and intolerable. We suggested other payout terms, but Synod insisted on holding title. So the next time we sat down at the settlement table on Monday, just this week, we proposed a $1.1 million buyout in 120 days and no transfer of title. Going in, we had a $1 million offer on the table. Synod countered with $1.4 million. And so we suggested instead a simple and fair formula based on Roseville's appraised value and their settlement figure. That creates a ratio. That same ratio applied to us yielded $1.1 million. And Synod reps pulled out their calculators, they confirmed the math, they consulted briefly, and they accepted the deal. And we think it is a very good deal. Of course, nobody likes buying something they already paid for. But if we had to rebuild our current facility somewhere else, it would easily run well over $20 million. The Family Life Center and Wells Chapel, those two facilities alone cost $10.5 million just to build them 10 years ago. So if we are repurchasing our church, think of it this way. It's cheaper than 5 cents on the dollar. And that is a fantastic deal. And consider this. What did it cost the Lord Jesus to redeem his church? Infinitely more. No reasonable accountant would say it was worth it. The blood of the Son of God. But God decided it was. He thinks his church is worth it. Is it worth it to us? Can we say, for $1 million, we will redeem the Lord's church and its mission and its ministries for the cause of Jesus Christ? I know we can, and we will. Even now, as the year winds down and the march to March 15 begins, I'd like to ask you to pray and consider how you might help in our Free at Last campaign. There are angel tree presents, there are orphans to sponsor, there are year-end contributions to make to the church, and we're depending on those. We want all that to happen as usual. In January, we're going to launch our Freedom Drive in earnest. But even now, would you begin to pray and consider? Many will want to contribute toward this $1 million goal. And then whatever remains to raise, we'll have to go out and borrow it. But come March 15, we can be sure of this. Fair Oaks Press will belong to Fair Oaks Press. And we can turn and face God's bright future without any ropes holding us down or back or strings attached. Did you know in our new evangelical Presbyterian denomination, our church property, it is owned by the congregation? Hey, when you see members of our negotiating team, please give them mighty hugs of appreciation. They have spent long hours deliberating over these past 2 years, including the travel and the settlement conferences themselves. One of them over in Redwood City, the one this week in Berkeley. Here's the team. John Akins, Jim Clifton, Bruce McCormick, Larry Cheatham, Chris Larson, Michelle Zumwalt, Linda Gantenbein. Great team. They are like soldiers who have been through war together. And thank you, everybody, for your mighty prayers on Monday for our church and for our team. We believe the Lord was with us. And we are, church, all of us, we are on the verge of finally and joyfully concluding our long struggle to get free. Just think, Easter next year should be a huge celebration. God bless you. See you in church.